I'm Jill Ingham, Client Relations Manager, and I have a fantastic job of talking to people like yourselves on a day-to-day basis. So I have lots of meetings with individual enquirers and also their organisations, learning and development experts. And I've been at the business school for 8 years, and just want to share quickly one of the many things I've learned in my 8 years, which is taken from the second unit on the Senior Leader Apprenticeship. It's called Strategic Management in a Global Context. And I learned a lot from that, and I was able to make a big difference as a trustee of a local community centre, to the extent that, you know, we've ensured the survival of the centre. We're putting on events that people want in the community. We've had a lot of successful bids, generally steering the future strategy of that organisation. Over to my colleague Kieran now to introduce himself.
Thank you, Jill. So Jill and I work together. I'm Kieran. I'm the head of client relations for our apprenticeship programs. And today we're talking to you about our new senior leader apprenticeship, which is a postgraduate diploma. We also have another healthcare related apprenticeship, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. But as Jill said, we're ready to take your questions in the chat pane, and there's a Q&A section right at the end. So Abby, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yep. So hi everyone. I'm Abby. I'm the Marketing and Recruitment Officer for Executive Education. So I work with both Jill and Kieran to promote our apprenticeship programmes.
Marvellous. Thank you very much, Abby and Kieran. We're now going to have a little focus on Manchester and why we think it's worth just taking a moment to think about Manchester as the location to be delivering a senior leadership apprenticeship. Now, I know that you will know some of this already, but you may not have crystallised your thinking about how much this city has such a great history of innovation. It was where, greatly where the Industrial Revolution started, and the Manchester Ship Canal, the splitting of the atom, which actually took place 2 buildings away from our business school, a little 2-minute walk into the campus, and there it says on the Coupland building, here was the atom split by Ernest Rutherford in 1917. So we walk on hallowed ground. First programmable computer, graphene was discovered in 2010, the thinnest substance on the planet, and we've got more Nobel Prize winners than Oxford or Cambridge, which is quite something. On the right, you can see some illustrious alumni. Christabel Pankhurst is the daughter of Emmeline, or was, and she was the first woman to get a law degree ever in this country in 1906. But of course, she wasn't allowed to practice that. And behind me, you can see the business school behind me on the screen. And the new Executive Education Teaching Centre, where you would come should you apply and be offered a place. So we now want to think about our ethos. So that's the kind of historical setting. What's our ethos that we always want to be thinking about when we design programmes? And it's original thinking applied. Why have we got that as our kind of motto or slogan? Well, we are one of the 2 original business schools in the UK. We're in what's known as the original modern city, Russell Group University, a great reputation. We have 5 centres around the world, Dubai, Singapore, Shanghai, Hong Kong and Sao Paulo. What that means is that we're working with clients, organisations, companies around the globe. And of course, we learn from them, and it keeps our thinking current. It's a 2-way process. We're also very fortunate on our programmes. We can bring in top professors from across campus, from maybe the artificial intelligence, aerospace, nuclear, whatever sector. We're able to do that, as well as the 250 or so academics in the business school. Now, what does all that mean? Well, we're part of only 1% of business schools in the world with triple accreditation, for industry accreditation. And all of our programmes incorporate latest research and latest theories, but all of it has to be applied by yourselves to your current roles on this apprenticeship. We don't want anybody doing any work that's just going to sit on a virtual library shelf. We're always asking you to take what we teach and apply it to challenges and opportunities you've got in your current roles. So you're guaranteed amazing impact on yourselves, your teams, and your organisation. Before we get into how that happens, Kieran's going to just peel back a minute and talk about what is a senior leadership apprenticeship and the funding mechanism.
Thank you, Jill. So yeah, just a moment, you may know a lot about apprenticeships already. You may know nothing about apprenticeships. So we wanted to take a moment and just explain what do we mean by an apprenticeship, because that may conjure thoughts of being an electrician or a welder, and noble pursuits they are, but this is a different kind of apprenticeship. It's for senior leaders. So let's break this down a little bit. What is a senior leader and what is this program about? Well, an apprenticeship is a funded program designed to help you develop into becoming a senior leader. So several years ago, a group of representing the public sector, private sector, third sector got together and said, what makes a senior leader? If a senior leader was about to walk into this room or this meeting or come online, what would they do? How would they think and how would they behave? And this established something called knowledge, skills and behavior. These are the things associated with being a senior leader. So a senior leader apprenticeship is something that's designed to help you develop into being a senior leader. And how will you know you've got there? Well, you'll be able to achieve all of those knowledge, skills and behavior to the required standard, a standard of excellence that's recognized nationally. We call it an apprenticeship because you're studying while you work. We'll come to this later on, but if you approach this as I'm going to work and then do my studies, that can be challenging. The best way to think of an apprenticeship is it's learning while you're working, studying while you work. So a senior leader apprenticeship is a program that's funded by the Apprenticeship Levy, and we'll talk about that in a second, that's designed to get you to a senior leader position through you acquiring the knowledge, skills and behaviors you need to reach that recognized standard. So who is it for? If really you're already at a senior leader level, you're a CEO, you're a director, this probably isn't the program for you. If one day you aspire to being in one of those positions, but you're not there, you're probably at a middle to maybe, new senior leader manager, then this might be the program for you, because this is designed to get you from where you are to where you want to be, not just in terms of career, but back to that knowledge, skills and behavior. So if you're a senior leader already, this probably isn't for you. But if you aspire to be one of those titles you can see on screen and you want to get there, this program will help you get there. Funding. So here's the thing, there's this thing called the Apprenticeship Levy Fund. And several years ago, the government decided not enough people were actually getting training. So rather than sort of set up lots of funds that you apply to, they actually said any organization with a payroll over 3 million, we're going to take a small amount every month and set it aside for you. And you can use that fund that's set aside every month just for specific training programs, apprenticeship programs. Now, if you have over 3 million payroll, then you'll be paying the levy in full. If you won't, then you can still apply for this levy funding. So if you're a smaller organization, you don't have this 3 million payroll, you can still apply to get the funding. If your organization does pay the levy in full, then you can claim all £14,000 of this course's costs. You can claim that from the apprenticeship levy, and that's how we would get paid your tuition fees. If you're working for an organization that isn't reaching that 3 million in payroll threshold, you can still claim the majority of that money, 95% of it, but your organization would have to put up 5% of that 14,000 to cover those costs. Now that includes your apprenticeship and includes a postgraduate diploma in senior leadership. There is an option to continue your studies after the program's finished and go on and kind of hand back your diploma and trade up to a master's. Now that is a further £4,000 in fees, and sadly that's not covered by the apprenticeship levy. So either you or your employer would have to fund that. So just to be clear, just to reiterate, the program is £14,000, that's what it costs, the leadership, apprenticeship and the postgraduate diploma. You can extend that by adding a master's. That part, that 4,000 isn't funded. And if you work for a small organisation, 95% of that 14,000 is covered. Your organisation just has to cover the 5. If you work for a bigger organisation that is paying fully into the levy, all of those costs are covered. If you've got any questions about the funding or about who it's for, pop them in the chat and we will cover them when we get back to that Q&A section at the end. Now back to Jill.
Thank you very much, Kieran. Just a bit of background now to explain why has the programme been redesigned recently, given that we've been running it since 2019. Well, firstly, all university degrees and other programmes come up for scrutiny every 3 or 4 years to make sure that they're still current and relevant. And given that we've just come through a pandemic, and we're now, a lot of us doing hybrid working, quite a lot of things have changed in the workplace. There's a new vocabulary that people are talking. So back in February, we literally started again. We didn't just chop off the end of our previous rather long senior leader apprenticeship. We completely started again with something called the knowledge, skills and behaviours that have to be part of this apprenticeship, and we made sure that the units cover these knowledge, skills and behaviours, so it's a tighter mapped programme with new topical content, latest research. You will see in a minute when I show you the content of each unit, you know, words that you'd expect to see these days. We've put in more learning touch points more often. There's a proper Christmas, Easter and summer holiday break. Previously there wasn't. We've varied the learning and the assignments to suit all learning styles. And the really good news is that it's now only 18 months long. So it will be finished quicker by those who undertake it. And as I said, we're now going to look at the 6 units that form the teaching part. Let's have a look at what they contain, because most people want to know more detail than that. So the first unit starts with yourselves, because that's where things need to start. So who are you as a manager? On that unit, we all get to look at, you know, our managing style, our leadership style. Leadership styles that we've witnessed in previous organisations, the good, the bad and the ugly. What about ethics, and what about our values and our brand and embracing, you know, diversity and innovation? After that, we move on to, we look at your organisation. So everybody pulls back from their current role in the organisation and thinks, okay, let me consider the entirety of it. What sector are we in? How do we influence our customers and our suppliers? And how do they impact on us? What's our productivity like? Who are our competitors? What's going on? What they call horizon scanning, especially if we're in a global context. What information have we got access to? And how do we make decisions? What's our brand? So we're looking at the organisation. In Unit 3, we're looking at the people within the organisation and getting things done, as we call it. How is the workforce engaged? How is resilience dealt with? What about well-being initiatives? How happy are people? What might leaders not be paying attention to? And how is performance managed? So again, we're stepping away from our daily role and thinking more broadly, which is what all good senior leaders need to be doing. And we can't overlook Unit 4, which has all these buzzwords in that we all keep hearing of: disruption and data, big data, and, you know, change agency, sustainability, in the digital, all things digital. So we look at that. So you might not be aspiring to be a senior leader, you know, particularly specialising in data, but you sure as heck need to know about it in order to ask questions in your organisation and go over to that department and ask them, you know, what's available to you in order to help you make decisions. The Unit 5 you would surely expect to see. No senior leader can operate without having a good grasp of finance. Of course, we're not trying to make you into an accountant, but becoming a lot more familiar with financial information and analysing it to make good decisions, and weighing up risk and some ethics as well in that unit. And then finally, what does all this mean in the current global context of sustainability? Are we just paying lip service to it, or have we incorporated that? Are we looking at the world and our jobs through that lens now? How conscious are we socially, environmentally, and ethics and governance? All of that is covered. So hopefully there you are seeing, you know, the very things you'd expect to see. The next slide looks like there's quite a lot, but if you just focus on the left-hand side, please, see the purple boxes mainly. Before you undertake Unit 1 in November, the programme starts in November, and the next one is April, if you're wondering. Before you actually get stuck into Unit 1, you do the psychometric Hogan assessment, Hogan psychometric assessment, which sounds a bit scary, but it isn't. It's a 45-minute online questionnaire in 3 parts, and it unpicks your experience, your knowledge, your skills, and some behaviours. And the results go through to a very talented person, a team of people that we have called practice-based tutors. And these tutors are experts in guiding people like yourselves through a senior leader apprenticeship. So the results go through to the tutor in confidence, and we organise an online meeting for you and the tutor to unpick this Hogan survey. And from that, we can see what you've already covered, what skills, what knowledge, what experience you've got, and what you still need to do. And that forms the basis of your personal development plan. Just skipping to Unit 7 and 8. Unit 7 is about your personal and professional practice and development, and so is Unit 8. But Unit 8 in the second year of the course builds on the one you've already done in Unit 7. You can read the different aspects there. And within that, what you're doing, here we come to the absolute crunch, I would say, of the essence of a senior leadership, is to be addressing these knowledge, skills and behaviours that are embedded in each unit, and saying, right, well, I've got no experience in that, or I've never thought about that. I need to address that in my job. Let me look at what opportunities I might have. Is there somebody I can go and talk to about that? Do I need my mentor, my boss, to arrange for me to go to a different department for a couple of hours? How can I go and learn about those missing bits of experience and skills to equip me to be a senior leader? And that's what you absolutely have to be doing, getting help to find ways to learn those extra bits and evidencing them in your online portfolio, because it's that portfolio that we send off to the endpoint assessor. And you'll have plenty of opportunity in Unit 8 to make sure that you've got everything in there to the best of your ability and show off. But really, from the word go, this isn't a program that you kind of wing for a while or coast along and then be in a mad scramble. Oh no, because there's a lot of regular check-ins with us and the tutor and your mentor to make sure you are, you know, operating consistently from the word go. Group activities, you know, the types of assignments, we've improved the variety of the way things are assessed, so that because we realise that people learn in different ways, so there'll be pieces of writing, presentations, blogs, maybe discussion boards, you know, because some people are better at just talking about something and others are better at writing it. So there'll be a nice mixture of that. And then, as I said, all your evidence is compiled in the portfolio. top right, you then proceed to something called Gateway, and that's where your mentor, your line manager, if that's your mentor, and yourself, agree that you've done everything you should be doing, haven't missed anything, and you're ready to proceed to the next stage. Have a review of that, making sure you've all got your maths and English, because if you didn't get your GCSE, you undertake that on functional skills through us. And then for the next 3 months, so all of that, the units takes 15 months. And then for the final 3, you sit with your mentor in your business and you think, right, what is a viable project for me to do, a proposal? It could be on a challenge that you've got in your business. It could be an opportunity. And you write a 500-word summary, which goes through to the Institute of Leadership and Management, which is our endpoint assessor. And it is agreed that, yep, that is a viable proposal for you to work on and produce 4,000 words within the 12 weeks, drawing on all the tools and skills that you've learnt in the previous units. And then we arrange a date once that's done for the endpoint assessment, where you give a 15-minute presentation about your strategic business proposal and you have a professional discussion. So it should be an enjoyable experience and an opportunity to show off. And then just a word about the MSc. If halfway through, and part of the way through this programme, you are really enjoying it, you're getting more than the 50% for each assignment, and if you are that sort of person that really likes independent study and you want to do a bigger project, you can put your hand up and say, yeah, I want to do another 6 months and do a bigger project for my organisation, and working with our academics. So there's no teaching on that part, it's working with our academics, something that's very useful for your business, but it isn't funded as part of the apprenticeship. It requires £4,000 payable by yourselves or your employer. So the next slide pulls together or a lot of what I've been talking about here, but just to say that each unit is 10 weeks in length. They all start online with a 1-hour tutorial. It's all in your diaries during the working day. Usually we send people a bit of pre-work, might be a couple of articles to read and some questions to think about, because we don't want anybody coming onto the tutorial blank, not really knowing what's going on. You'll have all got interesting ideas and thoughts in your heads. The person running the unit will almost certainly give a short talk, and then you'll have a wonderful discussion, probably in breakout groups and so on. So it is participatory. Now, if you miss it because you're ill or something important happens, dramatic happens, it won't disappear. It will be recorded like this webinar is, and you'll be able to go on it at a later point, but of course you won't be able to speak on it. So previously there were 4 online tutorials over 12 weeks, so there might be one fewer, but certainly within each unit there is a in-person workshop. So around about week 6 or 7, you would come in during the 10-week block for either 2 days or 3 days into our lovely business school that you can see behind me for workshops. And what happens on that? You are bringing in your ideas, your problems, challenges that you've currently got in your roles and thrashing them around and saying, well, this is what's going on. We heard about one option that we heard about on this unit is blah, help me make it happen. So you get advice from the other people in your little groups and the lecturers with that, or making the most of an opportunity quickly. So lots of mixed activities and workshops. You're probably wondering why some of them are 2 days and some are 3. That's because we've put on the third day in order to review your portfolio of evidence and your personal development. So that needs addressing in the classroom as well. Okay. I think that's all I'm going to say on that. So we're moving on now to some concerns that people like yourselves have had over the last 3 years that we've been involved in this. People were worried about studying online pre-pandemic. In fact, when the first lockdown happened in March 2020, this whole program had to go online, as did all degrees at the university, as you'll be aware. And of course, once people had understood Zooms and Teams and what have you, they quickly got used to it, and it worked very well. Some people are worried about getting the time. Well, your employer absolutely has to commit to allow you to have some time during work, and it rather than 20% off the job, it's now 6 hours within the working week on average. So it will very rarely be exactly 6 hours, because if you come in for the workshop in 1 week, that's more than 6 hours. It's 2 days. So probably the week before and the week after, you will have reduced hours on the apprenticeship. So again, people worrying about whether they can do their job and this. Well, the good news is, apart from your mentor and employer making sure that you do, is that we've already graduated people. We graduated some in March from the first cohort, and we've just had a fantastic day in the university main building, graduating people from 2 or 3 other cohorts that started then, and seeing them in their caps and gowns going across the stages. Fantastic, brandishing their qualification and their fully fledged senior leader apprenticeship, which is a national standard and fully recognised. On the right, some more concerns. People worried that they haven't studied for years. Well, Kieran will explain about the fantastic support that's available. Most people will be in the same boat, in fact. So we're now going to look at the entrance. No, we're not. We're just going to have a quick look at some things that people have recently said. If we just go to the next one. Right, I'm going to shut up for a minute and let you read what somebody recently said. So that's from Deborah, who has applied to come on the programme in November as a learner, as an apprentice learner. And then this quote here is from a company. So, as I said, that was the recent graduation that we all enjoyed, and what one of the employers said in answer to their apprentice having completed the senior leader apprenticeship. Okay, so now we will be looking at the entry requirements, and I'll hand over to Kieran.
Thank you, Jill. Okay, so what are the entry requirements? There's basically 3 routes. Okay, two routes on the screen. That there are basically 3. So the first route, the criteria, is have you got a degree? First of all, if it can be a degree in anything, doesn't have to be related to leadership and management. Have you got a degree at 2-1 or above? If you've got a degree at 2-1 or above, then it's 3 years of leadership and management experience. That's what we're looking for. So it's the degree plus 3. If you have a less than a 2-1 degree, or you don't have a degree at all, that's okay. You can still apply through the second route, which is 5 years leadership and management experience. So it's that upper second or first degree level plus 3, or lower rating degree or no degree, and it's 5 years. What do we mean by leadership and management experience? Ideally, you've got some line management experience in there. Some people spend a lot of their time influencing people, not leading people directly. That can count. But during the program, you'll be asked to draw upon your experience and share it with your peers. So we're not trying to exclude anybody, but if you don't have those sort of at minimum 3, if not 5 years leadership and management experience, it's very hard to join the conversation. You basically won't get as much of the program as you would had you got more experience. So we can send you details of this. The details are available on our website. We also can provide further information on admissions criteria. Those are the 2, technically 3, but 2, degree plus 3, lower degree or no degree plus 5. We will ask you for the equivalent of your GCSEs at grade C in maths and English or above. Now that might sound a little bit odd. This is entirely due to funding. This isn't something that we look for. This is to make sure you are eligible for funding. And if you've got any doubts or questions, we have put a link in the chat for a free online eligibility tool. It takes about 2 minutes to go through, and it will give you a guide as to whether or not you're likely to be eligible for funding on this program. And even if you're not, don't worry, there may be other routes to you. And specifically when we look at maths and English, if you don't have it, that doesn't mean you shouldn't apply anyway. All the regulations state is you have to have maths and English at C or above or equivalent by the end of the program. So if you don't have it at the start, let's say you missed out on a grade, that's fine. You could still apply. It's only that you need to have that completed by the end of the program. And actually, we can provide a parallel course called Functional Skills that takes you through that. So while you're studying your apprenticeship, you can also be doing the equivalency in those qualifications. A couple of things worth mentioning in terms of support, because this is quite an undertaking, but you do get support. The first way you get support is somebody called a practice-based tutor. Now, this is your personal tutor. They'll meet with you every 8 weeks, and that personal tutor is there to help you. So you may have questions about, how do I do an academic assignment? They can help. You may have questions about pastoral care. You're struggling, there's some issue in your personal life that's now encroaching on it. They will help you, or certainly point you for towards resources that are helpful. If you've got questions about getting an extension, if you've got questions about, I don't actually think I've got the evidence of being able to plan strategically, they can help you. Basically, they're your best friend in terms of getting you through the program. They will tell you what you need to do, they will help you. You will have to do a lot of self-directed study, but these check-in points every 8 weeks are there to make sure you've got the progress and the evidence that you're gathering so that when you get to the end of the program, you're ready to go. We will provide you with contact details for your personal tutor. So if you need to speak to them outside of those 8-week reviews, that's okay, they're available to you. Okay, so they'll help you with the academic and the kind of learning side of it. But what about work? You're going to need somebody from your workplace to help you equally. Good example, let's say one of the KSBs, knowledge, skills and behavior, is an understanding of mentoring and coaching. What if you've never done this before? What if there's no scope to do that in your current day job? Well, a work-based mentor is there to try and open doors for you within your organization to try and give you opportunities to be exposed to that new experience so that you can write about it, practice it, and say, yes, for that KSB, I've achieved that. Another example might be, let's say you've got to read a profit and loss account or a cash flow statement or any one of those financial statements, and you don't have a job that's in finance. Again, a work-based mentor is there to open doors to put you in the right meeting with the right group to get experience. Now, a work-based mentor can be your line manager. Sometimes they're the best place to know how much work you've got on and can help you in managing your time. But they don't always need to be your line manager. So think of somebody as a work-based mentor that you could recruit, because they're going to have to agree to this. They're going to have to support you. They're going to have to come to the meetings with you and your tutor every 8 weeks. So it is quite an undertaking, but they need to be there and positioned in the organization so that they can connect you to different departments, different areas, so you get that experience outside of your regular job. Okay. Something about off-the-job learning. There's a lot of odd terminology in apprenticeships. What does that actually mean? If you think of it as protected time, but a minimum of protected time. So when you sign up to an apprenticeship, you have to have your employer support. You can't do it without it. And your employer, if they support you, agrees to give you a minimum of 6 hours a week of off-the-job learning time, equivalent to. So I think, as Jill mentioned earlier, those 6 hours don't have to be taken in regular chunks every week. Let's say you've got some big activity at work one week, you might take more the second week. As long as by the time you get to the end of your apprenticeship, you've done the equivalent over the life of the program, that's okay. Now that protected time is important. It's there to help you study, but off the job's a little bit of a misnomer. It's really outside of your day job. That's a better way to think of it. So if my day job is working in recruitment, then off the job time that I can spend should be where I go to the meeting in finance and I'd learn about profit and loss accounts and I read some of the financial statements, or I get an opportunity to be a coach or a mentor. Anything that's outside my day job, my regular job description, can be counted as outside the job or off the job learning. Now, contingent on your funding is that you provide evidence that you're learning all the way through. We will be audited by the Education Skills Funding Agency, because we're drawing down money on your behalf to say we're paying your tuition fees. They're going to want to see evidence of learning. So logging your off-the-job learning is really important. And a great way of thinking about it is like keeping a diary. So at the end of every day, what you could do is say, okay, what are the things I've done today that are my job? And what are the things that actually have stretched me, have challenged me, have helped me get some of those experiences I need to get to that senior leader level? Maybe I've acted up in a meeting and represented my boss. Maybe I've covered for something. Maybe I've learned a new system or a new skill. So that's the way of thinking about it. At the end of each day, look at what you've done in that day and figure out what things might count as off-the-job learning. Now, we do say it's a 6-hour minimum. It will take you more than that study. There is no doubt about this. This is a level 7 qualification. So it's probably worth having those conversations at work and at home to make sure you've got the space and time. And if you don't think you have the space and time, then maybe apply at a different point. We have regular intakes throughout the year, 2 a year. So if right now you're just doing a big merger and acquisition project or a big digitization project, this may not be the best time to come and do a piece of study like this, but there'll always be another opportunity to apply in the future. Okay, so that's a little bit about off-the-job learning. We can provide a guide on what counts and what doesn't count as off-the-job learning. Jill, back to applications.
Thank you very much, Kieran. So we're now just going to have a look at the application process. So what we've, as Abby has kindly put, in the chat there, and you will find on our website, there's an eligibility checker. Absolutely worth doing that in the first instance to make sure that you haven't already got a master's level qualification in leadership or management or chartered manager status, or you got over, you did an MBA at some point, or you don't work 30 hours a week. That's another prerequisite. So worth doing that, because all the prompts will be there for you. If it's looking good once you've done that, and there's no doubt that you've got eligibility, then do contact me, because I have a more information for you about when the program starts and just more. And I also attach the mentor guide so that you can share that with your line manager or anybody else. More details about the 6 hours per week off the job, the knowledge, skills and behaviour documents, so you can have a look at those. I think that's it, maybe expression of interest. So I've got this extra information. And then the next thing is to go with another checklist just to make sure that you are good to apply. You can then book with me a one-to-one call on Teams for 30 minutes. They work really well. Just to clear up, you can ask your own particular questions. You should also, of course, be talking to your employer from as early as you can, and your line manager, and hopefully identify who your mentor would be, making sure that they understand the commitment. And critically, nobody can get through the application process without the letter of support from their employer. And I've got a bit of a template for that on my follow-up. It's not a particularly long letter, it's actually a long sentence, but it has to be on headed paper and signed by a person in authority to do that. Then we send you details about the application system, which we call AppTerm. It's called AppTerm, and we invite you to register yourselves on that. And then hopefully, armed with your certificates that you've found and your documents and your letter of support and your personal statement, at the ready, you can then upload all that and complete the process. So you need a good hour and a half to do that. And the more you've prepared in advance, the better. If you get, no need to get into a panic if you can't find certificates, because there's a government platform that we can obtain those from, or we can send you the link. It happens to a lot of people. They thought it was in their attic and then they can't find it and get into a bit of a spin. Now, critically, there's not much time left to apply for the November starting cohort, for which we've already got 26 applicants. Not to panic too much, there's still until the 27th of August, and not all of those people will get offered a place. There'll be something that, you know, we could find that rules them out of being eligible, or, you know, sometimes people take up a place and then drop out. So 27th of August today is the 4th, and if that's too tight for you, we're going to be running a reserve list, because, as I say, some people might drop out, and then you can be then considered for the next intake in April and hopefully get offered a place. So then on to the final section, Kieran, please, which is just a recap. What's so fantastic about our programme? Well, recently redesigned and shortened, latest topical leadership themes, post-pandemic era, latest research. There's a lot more varied, frequent and varied support. We've kept the Hogan Psychometric because we think it's the best tool there is for where a person is in their business life. The online resources and the study skills and the support is just incredible. It's only an 18-month commitment, but I say only with a reservation. It is nonetheless a commitment, and you need to throw yourself into it hook, line and sinker. Maybe cut down on some social activities, garner support from family, childcare, whatever you will know what's needed. As I say, we've already graduated people from the first 2 cohorts, so we know that our apprenticeships work. Excellent facilities and green spaces, world-class lecturers, and of course, great networking. People form a WhatsApp group in their cohorts. They go around the corner to the Brewdog pub at the end of the workshop, those that can, and they get to know each other very well from a business and friendship point of view, and make great connections across the sectors, which is all very satisfying. So finally, the benefits. So for you as individuals, clearly you're going to broaden out from your functional area. You may be an expert in operations or HR or business development or data, but you need this breadth of understanding of how organizations work. You'll feel more confident in meetings where there are senior people present, and you can contribute to the strategy of your organisation going forwards. And for those of you that are commissioners of learning and development, training managers, clearly you'll get people coming immediately back from the programme with great ideas and how to improve things on their teams via the assignments, and people are more likely to stay with you into the future. Kieran is now going to mention the healthcare version of Senior Leader Apprenticeship.
So very briefly, thank you, Jill. We just want to leave some time for some Q&A at the end here, but very, very briefly, there is another Senior Leader Apprenticeship that we offer in parallel to this one, and that is called the Elizabeth Garrett Anderson Apprenticeship. And this was designed several years ago to be a program specifically for health and social care. So that's senior leaders aspiring to be senior leaders in health and social care. It has 3 golden threads to do with promoting equality, diversity and inclusion in your leadership approach, the quality of care for patients and service users, and to lead to sustainable improvement. Now, further details are available on our website, or if you've got a question, pop it in the chat and we can put it there. But just to say, this is another example of those knowledge, skills and behaviours being applied and taught, but this time through a lens of health and social care. So it's same brilliant strategic leader approach and qualification, but through a lens that looks specifically at patients, the NHS, health and social care. Okay, Jill, Abby, I think it's now we're time for the Q&A.
Great, thank you very much. That's the end of our presentation, folks. So the first person I noted with a question is Elaine. Thank you very much. And she's asking, you know, how many of our apprentices have already gone on to be senior leaders? It's a brilliant question, and one that, you know, you'd like to know. We haven't got kind of figures yet on that, but I've made a note to get that. But we have already graduated people off the first 2 cohorts, one of which was all NHS, and I have observed over the last 3 years, when I get a notification, you know, from LinkedIn, you can see when somebody's been promoted. We definitely know that they do. Yeah, so people even get promoted. Some of them have been promoted while they're on the program. So, but I can't give you any numbers. Can you, Kieran?
Just to add on that, yeah, Jill, one of the other programs, we've got about 70% of people move on, move up one. That's not the only reason why people do it. Obviously, now is a time where people are thinking about acquiring the skills they need for the future, and we don't always know what the future is going to be like, but we know it's going to be different. So we're seeing a lot of people do it not just for the qualification, but for the skills and knowledge they get to pick up. The majority of people who come on this program are already highly skilled and often highly qualified, but in their field. So you might be great in IT, you might be great in operations, you might be fantastic in sales or HR. What unites them is they're looking for skills, knowledge, and a qualification in leadership and management. That's what they've seen. That's what often is a criteria in some job specs for you to even apply. So yeah, it's about 70% in our healthcare program. Jill will make a note to come back with some details on this this current program. Abby, sorry, Jill, I don't know, your camera seems to be off, but that's okay. Abby, have you got any other questions there?
Yeah, so we do have a few other questions. So somebody's asked, do you have to be working throughout the entirety of the program? So for example, you know, if someone was due to be made redundant during the course of the program, are they still eligible to apply?
Can I come on that one, Jill? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
So you were allowed, I think, under the rules of funding, if you're redundant and you start a new job within 30 days, there's no change. You know, you would need to inform us of your new employer, what have you. There's no change, and that's provided your employer agrees to pick up this funding. So let's say if you're made redundant, we have actually got some special advice and some forms for you to fill in. If you were on program and you happen to be made redundant, we would be able to supply with the forms and tell you where you stand. But in a nutshell, if it's a brief period, definitely you could continue, provided your new employer is happy to pick up that tab. If not, you would probably have to come off the program, because it is an apprenticeship that involves you working. Now, there are caveats around redundancy. I've just explained, you know, if you're moving to another job, and there is potential. It also depends on how far you are on the program. If you're really close to the end of the program, you can also get some sort of dispensation to continue the program whilst being redundant. So every case is somewhat different. Another example might be maternity or paternity leave. You want to take an extended leave or parental leave. That's factored into our approach to apprenticeships. So we try and be as accommodating and as flexible as possible. You have to really be working to complete the program, but you can take these breaks for redundancy, you can take breaks for parental leave. But it also depends on where you take those breaks over that 18 months. If you're right at the end and then you suddenly find yourself redundant, there's a very good chance you'll be able to finish without an issue. If you're right at the beginning and you don't move to a new employer within 30 days, that can be a lot more problematic. So apologies if that's a woolly answer. What I've tried to explain is there are contingencies there within the first 30 days of redundancy, but we would treat each individual case on its own merits. And it also depends how far you are in the program. Is that okay?
So the back of that, Kieran, you know, if someone knows they're going to be made redundant before they apply, can they still apply?
That's a good question. I would be talking, I'd probably encourage them to be in a full-time position again before applying. If you know it's going to happen, it may seem counterintuitive. If you're going to be made redundant, you might have a bit of extra time that you hadn't accounted for, in which case you'd think, what a great time for studying. Unfortunately, the nature of an apprenticeship is it's studying whilst you're working. So if you know you're going to be made redundant, I would probably focus all the energies on your next position and then apply for the apprenticeship, rather than apply knowing that your position is coming to an end. One of the criteria we have, and it's on the eligibility checker, is have you got an employment contract longer than the length of the program? So if you already know that yours is coming to an end, you wouldn't be able to answer that question, and you would probably be ruled out anyway. That's the rules. In terms of a more personal approach, I would suggest, you know, focus on your new appointment and then reapply, because you do need to be in a permanent contract for at least 18 months, because that's the length of the program. That's probably a more complete answer, Abby. Thank you for the prompt on that.
Thank you. And another question, so can applicants APL previous qualifications?
Yeah, I'll go with that. That's from Kirk. Yes, well, this happens anyway. Everybody's previous qualifications are studied by our admissions team and the programme director in particular, to make sure that you've not done too much of what is taught on this programme, and to see what you might be exempt from on this programme. For example, if you are already a chartered accountant, of which we've got a few, you are exempt from the unit on finance, and we can't claim for that part of the funding. So we'd be claiming less overall for that person's apprenticeship. The other one is M6, I think. Kieran, can you think of any other prior learning exemption?
I think so. Yeah, Jill's right. We do this recognising of all of your prior learning, and just to add to Jill's point about the accountancy, it's a great example. Just to be clear, you don't get off the program. You know, you still come to the program, you still come to the workshops. We just don't charge you for things you already know. Yeah. So it's not like the 18 months you suddenly lost a gap and it's shorter. You have to follow the same rhythm and timetable of the program. But there are a few, you know, qualifications. Anything that's specific to leadership and management, we would look at very closely. And as long as there is at least 12 months worth of new stuff that we can impart to you, that you can learn, that's okay. We have one or two instances where people have good examples like the MBA. You've already studied at that level. You've already got a master's level qualification. You've already kind of covered a lot of the leadership and management topics. There just isn't enough left in that program. You know, there might be a week of new material. You're not going to sit through 18 months of a program to get 1 week. So it varies. We do look at each application on its own merits. But yes, we always look at the APL and functional skills as well. Yep, that's part of it. Part of your application will say to you, here are all the knowledge, skills and behavior, rate yourself against them. You know, do you consider yourself fully competent? You know, you've got some experience or you've got no experience in those areas. If you haven't got your maths and English, we can put you through a functional skills test to see what you need, or put you on the actual functional skills course so you can qualify as well. So just to recap there, you don't truncate the program for having APL or RPL. We look at everybody's application in detail. That's why you need to tell us what you've studied so we can check. And yes, functional skills can be checked as well.
Thanks, Kieran. I've noticed one other question from Michael, which is just keen to get in before we finish. Michael's asking, is it only the Institute of Leadership and Management, ILM, or can the Chartered Management Agency, CMI, also be used? Well, we're only using the one. We can't use both because it's a similar process. We use ILM, and in fact, upon completion of the apprenticeship, you and the endpoint assessment, you then gain yourself the title of Fellow of the Institute of Leadership and Management, as well as your Senior Leader Apprenticeship and the Postgraduate Diploma Senior Leadership. So what I failed to say earlier on is that you actually get 3 things in one carefully mapped program, which is pretty fantastic, I think. Any more questions that you can see there from Abby and Kieran?
I think that was all of the questions.
Yes, we're coming up to 2 minutes to go. So Abby, do you want to taper off about the slides?
Yes, yep. So I will be sharing both the slides and the recording of the webinar. So I'll share those shortly by email.
Thanks very much. Right, well, thank you very much, Kieran and Abby, and all of you participants. It's been fantastic, and do get in touch if this has whetted your appetite, and have a good rest of the day.